Let's cross to Melbourne now and catch up with Colin Vickery, who's the television writer for the Herald Sun newspaper. Thanks for joining us, Colin. I wonder if you can first tell us just how big a blow to Channel 10 this is to lose the three hosts of their wildly successful, really, when you look at a whole decade of television, a wildly successful program like MasterChef.
Oh, look, it's a huge piece of news and a real big shake-up for the show, Chris. No doubt about it. It seems like the guys were after quite a hefty pay rise, but from everything I've read, it looks like they were only really going to be contracted for maybe another year, maybe a little bit more. So it wasn't like a 5-year contract or anything like that. So it feels like 10 have had some plans to change it at some point, and money obviously has been the issue. But it's a big risk for 10 to lose them, because we've seen with things like the Footy Show that you can make some changes to the hosts and it just all goes south.
Yeah, and this could have a real impact on their revenue, on their turnover, on their profitability.
Well, MasterChef's been one of its really stable shows. I mean, 10 had a horror start to the year this year with, many shows failing, and they were just absolutely looking forward to MasterChef coming on air. And, look, MasterChef this year has done a really solid job. It hasn't been as successful as last year. Remember last year they had the spike of Prince Charles being on the show and the 10th anniversary and all of that, and that sort of really gave the show a bit of a boost last year. The figures have been down a little bit this year. The finale, for example, did a shade under $1 million, whereas last year it did about $1.35 million. So I suppose Gary, Matt and George were sort of hitting 10 up for some more money at a time the show itself was maybe flatlining a little bit.
Let's have a look at a little bit of the finale, which of course was recorded before the contract negotiations failed, but there was this reference in the show to the longevity of the hosts.
We were just talking earlier that you would have been 11 years old when we turned up on the TV screens. Number one, what the hell happened to us?
Colin, do you think the underpayment problems of George Calombaris played into this at all?
No, not really. Chris, I think one of the things that a lot of people haven't mentioned, and I will tonight, is that we've got to remember that 18 months ago, Lisa Wilkinson got paid a huge amount of money to go over to Channel 10 from Channel 9, and if the reports are true, it was more than $2 million a year. If I was a star at Channel 10 at that particular time, I would be saying to myself, even if I was paid $1 million, and was hosting MasterChef, that I was getting underpaid. And I think my manager would be saying the same thing. So I think perhaps what we've seen a little bit is that that benchmark has sort of come back to bite 10 a little bit, because some of the stars are going, well, hang on a second, we're really not getting paid as much as we should. Even though some people have said that Gary, George and Matt have been greedy to go for another 40%, in that scenario, they're not.
Hey, it's a cooking show. Everyone's greedy. What about Lisa Wilkinson? Is she much of a foodie? Maybe she could host it.
Look, I think, it's going to be interesting to see who does. I think the most obvious choices are probably some of the people that have won, or, the biggest stars that have appeared on it in the past, because what I wrote last week is that we tend to forget that in MasterChef, the first season of MasterChef, Sarah Wilson hosted it and the 3 judges were just judges. But come year 2, those 3 judges started to host as well. So they're doing 2 jobs at once, and they're mentoring the contestants. So whoever takes over has actually got quite a big job to do as far as trying to host, the skills that are taken to host it as well as to do the judging, if that's the way they're going to do it. And so you'd have to think that you'd look at people like Poe or, past winners like Adam Lau, who have sort of done their own shows and therefore will have some hosting experience and could judge.
Let me pull you up there. Adam Lau's a good mate of mine. He's an Adelaide Crows supporter, comes from Adelaide. He's got a Chinese-Malaysian heritage. Poe is another Adelaidean, South Australian. I'm not certain whether she was born here, but she certainly has Asian heritage as well. They've been 2 of the most successful people as a winner and a runner-up of MasterChef. What do you make of this criticism from the ABC that apparently, there's racism in MasterChef and there's been too many middle-class white men?
Well, I have to say, Chris, when I read that article, I thought, what a crock, and I'm not talking Crockenbush. It quite a bizarre piece, really, because, you know, you'd have to think that that MasterChef has been, you know, really led the way as far as multicultural television goes and been one of the most progressive shows, and good on it as far as, you know, the diversity of the contestants. And you know, the judges that have, or the celebrity chefs that have come from overseas have basically come because they get on so well with Matt, Gary and George. So Nigella, whenever I've interviewed Nigella, she loves coming over here, loves being part of the show. Same with Heston Blumenthal. You know, the Yotam Ottolenghi, he loves it as well. It's such an inclusive show. And it's such a positive sort of show, you know, where there's a lot of negative television reality shows around these days. Such a positive show. So to criticise the judges, and I think one of the sentences was good riddance, well, you know, that's just a bit below the pale, I think. Well,
and especially when you see that Adam Liao and Poe in particular, and a couple of others, have gone off to have great careers based on their success in MasterChef, and good on them. And the latest winner, Larissa, a young Australian woman of Lebanese background, she looks like she's going to have a big career as well. There's a lot of people have done well out of this show, other than just Channel 10 shareholders.
Absolutely. And look, not everyone wants to go into the media that does well on the show. There's a lot of people. Sashi from last year, he's been running his own eatery, and lots of people have gone into the industry, and that's what really it's meant to be about. I mean, the notion of MasterChef at the start was that these people would go into the industry and run restaurants, run cafes, and so the people that ended up in the media were meant to be, you know, the outliers sort of thing. So, you know, we can't judge the success of a MasterChef contestant by whether they have a media career or not.
Indeed, indeed. Thanks very much, Colin. I appreciate it.